Now talk about the House Oversight Committee hearing on President Obama's controversial contraceptive plan. Almost as controversial as the plan itself. The hearing has been called biased and a sham. It was asked for by Republican Chairman Darrell Issa, and here's what Carol Maloney of New York had to say before she walked out of the hearing along with Eleanor Holmes Norton of Washington, D.C. Listen.
What I want to know is, where are the women? When I look at this panel, I don't see one single woman representing the tens of millions of women across the country who want and need insurance coverage for basic preventive health care services, including family planning. Where are the women?
An excellent rhetorical question. I've got Tom Davis over here like, let me hop in. There were women. There were women.
Tom chaired this committee before Issa did. He actually could have been in that seat yesterday.
Okay, good to know that. I didn't know that. So there were women. There was the first panel.
The second panel had a couple women.
Right. So the first one had 5 men. Second panel had 3 men and 2 women. So there were women in the afternoon panel. But in a conversation that's really talking a lot.
None of the women went to the second panel.
Right. Right. Exactly. All right. So
this is all politics.
But if you were chairing that committee, Tom, if you had still been chairing that committee, you wouldn't have made that mistake. Exactly. You would have had a woman in the first panel.
It wasn't really a conversation about the issue. I mean, it was a very one-sided conversation. Virginia Democrat Gerry Connolly is a member of the House Oversight Committee, and he joins us now from Washington, D.C. It's nice to have you, sir. So before we open up to our panelists who've already jumped in, and you know all these guys, I know, you called this a sham. Why did you think this whole hearing was a sham anyway?
Well, because unlike Tom Davis, who would not have done this, the chairman of our committee, Darrell Issa, picked every one of these witnesses, made sure they were all of the most conservative bent in their respective denominations, absolutely precluded the Democrats from having a single witness, and picked 2 at the last minute to add to the panel in flagrant violation of the rules. Then he created signs and had staff members holding them up as if these historic figures supported his narrow point of view on the subject. They did everything possible to try to change the subject from women's reproductive health and the right to contraception to something else. And it blew up in their faces because of the way they handled it.
But the panel was originally called this, and kind of a long and wordy title. You should talk to your folks back on the Hill about this. Lines crossed, separation of church and state. Has the Obama administration trampled on freedom of religion?
You can't even Twitter that.
You're already off the Twitter on that.
Exactly. Connolly has Davis's old seat.
I know. So he says you wouldn't have done that, Congressman Davis.
Well, but Gerry, I understand they did ask the Democrats for a witness, and the Democrats sent them 2, and they invited Barry Lynn, who then declined at the last minute. And I think that was part of the mix-up. They were late getting back.
But when you look at the title of
Tom, I don't think there was any mix-up. Darrell Issa clearly wanted to censor any dissenting views on this topic, and that's why it blew up in his face.
Barry Lynn's Americans United for Separation of Church and State was invited, and I guess backed out at the last minute.
But when you look at the title of this, hang on, let me stop this conversation for a second, because I want to go back to the title. You know, has the Obama administration trampled on freedom of religion? You're also really, it's framed around a conversation about contraception. That really is what everybody has been talking about. So 2 things. One, why no women? If you're talking about contraception, to have...
Well, because the conversation wasn't... I mean, you had a Jewish rabbi who was pro-contraception who was on the first panel, and they looked at this as an infringement on religious practices, that going after the Catholic Church on this, they felt threatened. I think that was the purpose of the panel. As Gerry said, they turned it into contraception was the underlying issue of this. This has become a political food fight.
And then let's be realistic here, too. The TV cameras were there in the morning for the first panel. That was with the all-male panel. In the afternoon, not as much attention was paid to the hearing. So if you want to be fair, you make sure there's a woman on the first panel when there's a maximum public attention.
Okay, but I'm even going to take exception to that. What do you mean you want to be fair? If this am I crazy, or is this really a conversation about contraception that's being framed as a conversation about religious freedom?
No, it's about religious freedom being framed as about contraception. It just depends on the narrative.
So that you get back in this.
Go ahead.
Let me give Gerry a shot.
Connolly's like, let me in.
Gerry got up early to get here.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to agree with you. I mean, think about the title, Trampled? Why not have it neutrally worded? Have they crossed the line? That would have been a fair title. But when you say trampled, you've given away the game. You clearly have already in advance decided the answer.
It's a little bit like, Senator, when did you stop beating your wife? The panel.
That's right.
I mean, it kind of,
you know, the whole frame of this is silly. This is about access to health care, and women need access to contraception. It was always about contraception.
If it is, in fact, about religious liberty. But if it is, let's say that Congressman Davis is right. It's religious liberty. Still having no women, religious freedom and religious liberty, still framed around a conversation of contraception, having no women on that panel.
Well, I think
Soledad,
go ahead, Gerry.
I just want to point out about religious freedom. Mike Huckabee, when he was governor of Arkansas, signed into law exactly the compromise President Obama has approved. Mitt Romney, Republican governor of Massachusetts, enshrined this in his Romney Care, exactly the same policy. It is nonsense to claim this is suddenly a religious freedom issue. This is a policy that's been embraced by Republicans all over the country until now. And you have to say, what's changed? What's changed? We're in an election year, and they want to try desperately find something that can hang around the president's neck.
Gerry, what's changed, though, is the Catholic bishops in the church, from every pulpit across the country, read an edict opposing what the administration did on that. That wasn't the Republican Party.
On the original policy, and the president fixed it.
But the problem, it's not fixed yet, Gerry, because some of these plans are self-insured, but it's something they can get to.
Yeah, they'll get that.
But it is still a work in progress.
But here's the deeper thing here. This is about, and Senator Santorum said it himself, contraception is bad for women. That's the underlying fault line here, which is that...
Democratic narrative.
That is a quote, sir. We have to go to commercial break. I love when we keep talking, because I'm going to continue on the other side. Still ahead this morning in Starting Point. We're going to... Yes, Congressman Connolly, thanks for being with us. I almost forgot to thank him because we have a little shout fest right in front of me. We appreciate you being with us, sir. We're going to talk about Mitt Romney straight ahead. Is he in danger of losing the